I, Clement, who was born in the city of Rome, was from my earliest age a lover of chastity, while the bent of my mind held me bound as with chains of anxiety and sorrow. For a thought that was in me, whence originating I cannot tell, constantly led me to think of my condition of mortality, and to discuss such questions as these: whether there be for me any life after death, or whether I am to be wholly annihilated, whether I did not exist before I was born, and whether there shall be no remembrance of this life after death, and so the boundlessness of time shall consign all things to oblivion and silence, so that not only we shall cease to be, but there shall be no remembrance that we have ever been. This also I revolved in my mind, when the world was made, or what was before it was made, or whether it has existed from eternity, for it seemed certain that if it had been made, it must be doomed to dissolution, and if it be dissolved, what is to be afterwards? Unless perhaps all things shall be buried in oblivion and silence, or something shall be, which the mind of man cannot now conceive. While I was continually revolving in my mind these and such like questions, suggested I know not how, I was pining away wonderfully through excess of grief, and what was worse, if at any time I thought to cast aside such cares, as being of little use, the waves of anxiety rose all the higher upon me. For I had in me that most excellent companion, who would not suffer me to rest, the desire of immortality. For as the subsequent issue showed, and the grace of Almighty Jehovah directed, this bent of mind led me to the quest of truth and the acknowledgement of the true light, and hence it came to pass that ere long I pitied those whom formerly in my ignorance I believed to be happy. Having therefore such a bent of mind from my earliest years, the desire of learning something led me to frequent the schools of the philosophers. There I saw that naught else was done, save that doctrines were asserted and controverted without end, contests were waged, and the arts of syllogisms and the subtleties of conclusions were discussed. If at any time the doctrine of the immortality of the soul prevailed, I was thankful. If at any time it was impugned, I went away sorrowful. Still, neither doctrine had the power of truth over my heart. This only I understood, that opinions and definitions of things were accounted true or false, not in accordance with their nature and the truth of the arguments, but in proportion to the talents of those who supported them. And I was all the more tortured in the bottom of my heart, because I was neither able to lay hold of any of those things which were spoken as firmly established, nor was I able to lay aside the desire of inquiry. But the more I endeavored to neglect and despise them, so much the more eagerly, as I have said, did a desire of this sort, creeping in upon me secretly as with a kind of pleasure, take possession of my heart and mind. Being therefore straitened in the discovery of things, I said to myself, why do we labor in vain, since the end of things is manifest? For if after death I shall be no more, my present torture is useless. But if there is to be for me a life after death, let us keep for that life the excitements that belong to it, lest perhaps some sadder things befall me than those which I now suffer, unless I shall have lived piously and soberly. And according to the opinions of some of the philosophers, I be consigned to the stream of dark rolling Phlegethon, or to Tartarus, like Sisyphus and Titius, and to eternal punishment in the infernal regions, like Ixion and Tantalus. And again I would answer to myself, but these things are fables, or if it be so, since the matter is in doubt, it is better to live piously. But again I would ponder with myself, how should I restrain myself from the lust of sin, while uncertain as to the reward of righteousness? And all the more when I have no certainty what righteousness is, or what is pleasing to God, and when I cannot ascertain whether the soul be immortal, and be such that it has anything to hope for, nor do I know what the future is certainly to be, yet still I cannot rest from thoughts of this sort. What then shall I do? This shall I do. I shall proceed to Egypt, and there I shall cultivate the friendship of the hierophants or prophets who preside at the shrines. Then I shall win over a magician by money, and entreat him by what they call the necromantic art, to bring me a soul from the infernal regions, as if I were desirous of consulting it about some business. But this shall be my consultation, whether the soul be immortal. Now the proof that the soul is immortal will be put past doubt, not from what it says or from what I hear, but from what I see. For seeing it with my eyes, I shall ever after hold the surest conviction of its immortality, and no fallacy of words or uncertainty of hearing shall ever be able to disturb the persuasion produced by sight. However, I related this project to a certain philosopher with whom I was intimate, who counseled me not to venture upon it. For, said he, if the soul should not obey the call of the magician, you henceforth will live more hopelessly, as thinking that there is nothing after death, and also as having tried things unlawful. If, however, you seem to see anything, what religion or what piety can arise to you from things unlawful and impious? For they say that transactions of this sort are hateful to the divinity, and that God sets himself in opposition to those who trouble souls after their release from the body. When I heard this, I was indeed staggered in my purpose, yet I could not in any way either lay aside my longing or cast off the distressing thought. Not to make a long story of it, while I was tossed upon these billows of my thought, a certain report, which took its rise in the regions of the East in the reign of Tiberius Caesar, gradually reached us, and gaining strength as it passed through every place, like some good message sent from God, it was filling the whole world, and suffered not the divine will to be concealed in silence. For it was spread over all places, announcing that there was a certain person in Judea, who, beginning in the springtime, was preaching the kingdom of God to the Jews, and saying that those should receive it, who should observe the ordinances of his commandments and his doctrine, and that his speech might be believed to be worthy of credit, and full of the divinity. He was said to perform many mighty works, and wonderful signs and prodigies by his mere word, so that, as one having power from God, he made the deaf to hear, and the blind to see, and the lame to stand erect, and expelled every infirmity and all demons from men. Yea, that he even raised dead persons who were brought to him, that he cured lepers also, looking at them from a distance, and that there was absolutely nothing which seemed impossible to him. These and such like things were confirmed in process of time, not now by frequent rumors, but by the plain statements of persons coming from those quarters, and day by day the truth of the matter was further disclosed. At length, meetings began to be held in various places in the city, and this subject started to be discussed in conversation, and it became a matter of wonder who this might be who had appeared, and what message he had brought from God to men. Until about the same year, a certain man, standing in a most crowded place in the city, made proclamation to the people, saying, "Hear me, O you citizens of Rome. The Son of God is now in the regions of Judea, promising eternal life to everyone who will hear him, but upon condition that he shall regulate his actions according to the will of him by whom he has been sent, even of God the Father. Wherefore, turn ye from evil things to good, from things temporal to things eternal. Acknowledge that there is one God, ruler of heaven and earth, in whose righteous sight ye unrighteous inhabit his world. But if you be converted, and act according to his will, then, coming to the world to come and being made immortal, you shall enjoy his unspeakable blessings and rewards." Now, the man who spoke these things to the people was from the regions of the East, by nation a Hebrew, by name Barnabas, who said that he himself was one of his disciples, and that he was sent for this end, that he should declare these things to those who would hear them. When I heard these things, I began with the rest of the multitude to follow him, and to hear what he had to say. Truly, I perceived that there was nothing of dialectic artifice in the man, but that he expounded with simplicity, and without any craft of speech, such things as he had heard from the Son of God, or had seen. For he did not confirm his assertions by the force of arguments, but produced, from the people who stood round about him, many witnesses of the sayings and marvels which he related. Now, inasmuch as the people began to assent willingly to the things which were sincerely spoken, and to embrace his simple discourse, those who thought themselves learned or philosophic began to laugh at the man, and to flout him, and to throw out for him the grappling hooks of syllogisms, like strong arms. But he, unterrified, regarding their subtleties as mere ravings, did not even judge them worthy of an answer, but boldly pursued the subject which he had set before him. At length, someone having proposed this question to him as he was speaking, why a gnat has been so formed, that though it is a small creature and has 6 feet, yet it has got wings in addition, whereas an elephant, though it is an immense animal and has no wings, yet has only 4 feet. He, paying no attention to the question, went on with his discourse, which had been interrupted by the unseasonable challenge, only adding this admonition at every interruption: we have it in charge to declare to you the words and the wondrous works of him who has sent us, and to confirm the truth of what we speak, not by artfully devised arguments, but by witnesses produced from among yourselves. For I recognize many standing in the midst of you whom I remember to have heard along with us the things which we have heard, and to have seen what we have seen. But be it in your option to receive or to spurn the tidings which we bring to you. For we cannot keep back what we know to be for your advantage, because, if we be silent, woe is to us. But to you, if you receive not what we speak, destruction. I could indeed very easily answer your foolish challenges, if you asked for the sake of learning truth. I mean as to the difference of a gnat and an elephant. But now it were absurd to speak to you of these creatures, when the very Creator and Framer of all things is unknown by you. When he had thus spoken, all, as with one consent, with rude voice, raised a shout of derision to put him to shame and to silence him, crying out that he was a barbarian and a madman. When I saw matters going on in this way, being filled, I know not whence, with a certain zeal and inflamed with religious enthusiasm, I could not keep silence, but cried out with all boldness, most righteously does Almighty God hide his will from you, whom he foresaw to be unworthy of the knowledge of himself, as is manifest to those who are really wise, from what you are now doing. For when you see that preachers of the will of God have come among you, because their speech makes no show of knowledge of the grammatical art, but in simple and unpolished language, they set before you the divine commands, so that all who hear may be able to follow and to understand the things that are spoken, you deride the ministers and messengers of your salvation, not knowing that it is the condemnation of you who think yourselves skillful and eloquent, that rustic and barbarous men have the knowledge of the truth, whereas, when it has come to you, it is not even received as a citizen, while, if your intemperance and lust did not oppose, it ought to have been a citizen and a native. Thus you are convicted of not being friends of truth and philosophers, but followers of boasting and vain speakers. You think that truth dwells not in simple, but in ingenious and subtle words, and produce countless thousands of words which are not to be rated at the worth of one word. What then do you think will become of you, all you crowd of Greeks, if there is to be, as he says, a judgment of God? But now give over laughing at this man to your own destruction, and let any one of you who pleases answer me, for indeed by your barking you annoy the ears even of those who desire to be saved, and by your clamor you turn aside to the fall of infidelity the minds that are prepared for faith. What pardon can there be for you who deride and do violence to the messenger of the truth when he offers to you the knowledge of God? Whereas even if he brought you nothing of truth, yet even for the kindness of his intentions towards you, you ought to receive with gratitude and welcome. While I was urging these and similar arguments, a great excitement was stirred up among the bystanders, some being moved with pity as towards a stranger, and approving my speech as in accordance with that feeling. Others, petulant and stolid, rousing the anger of their undisciplined minds as much against me as against Barnabas. But as the day was declining to evening, I laid hold of Barnabas by the right hand, and led him away, although reluctantly, to my house. And there I made him remain, lest perchance any one of the rude rabble should lay hands upon him. While we were thus placed in contact for a few days, I gladly heard him discoursing the word of truth. Yet he hastened his departure, saying that he must by all means celebrate at Judea a festal day of his religion which was approaching, and that there he should remain in future with his countrymen and his brethren, evidently indicating that he was horrified at the wrong that had been done to him. At length I said to him, "Only expound to me the doctrine of that man who you say has appeared, and I will arrange your sayings in my language, and will preach the kingdom and righteousness of Almighty God. And after that, if you wish it, I shall even sail along with you, for I am extremely desirous to see Judea, and perhaps I shall remain with you always." To this he answered, "If indeed you wish to see our country, and to learn those things which you desire, set sail with me even now, or if there be anything that detains you now, I shall leave with you directions to my dwelling, so that when you please to come, you may easily find me, for tomorrow I shall set out on my journey." When I saw him determined, I went down with him to the harbor, and carefully took from him the directions which he gave me to find his dwelling. I told him that, but for the necessity of getting some money which was due to me, I should not at all delay, but that I should speedily follow him. Having told him this, I commended him to the kindness of those who had charge of the ship, and returned sad, for I was possessed of the memory of the intercourse which I had had with an excellent and a choice friend. Having then stopped for a few days, and having in some measure finished the business of collecting what was owing to me, for I neglected many things through my desire of hastening, that I might not be hindered from my purpose, I set sail direct for Judea, and after 15 days landed at Caesarea Stratonis, which is the largest city in Palestine. When I had landed, and was seeking for an inn, I learned from the conversation of the people that one Peter, a most approved disciple of him who appeared in Judea, and showed many signs and miracles divinely performed among men, was going to hold a discussion of words and questions the next day with one Simon, a Samaritan. Having heard this, I asked to be shown his lodging, and having found it, and standing before the door, I informed the doorkeeper who I was, and whence I came. And behold, Barnabas coming out, as soon as he saw me, rushed into my arms, weeping for joy, and seizing me by the hand, led me into Peter. Having pointed him out to me at a distance, "This," said he, "is Peter, of whom I spoke to you as the greatest in the wisdom of God, and to whom also I've spoken constantly of you. Enter, therefore, as one well known to him, for he is well acquainted with all the good that is in you, and has carefully made himself aware of your religious purpose, whence also he is greatly desirous to see you. Therefore I present you to him today as a great gift." At the same time, presenting me, he said, "This, O Peter, is Clement." But Peter most kindly, when he heard my name, immediately ran to me and kissed me. Then, having made me sit down, he said, "You did well to receive as your Barnabas, preacher of the truth, nothing fearing the rage of the insane people. You shall be blessed. For as you have deemed an ambassador of the truth worthy of all honor, so the truth herself shall receive you, a wanderer and a stranger, and shall enroll you a citizen of her own city. And then there shall be great joy to you, because, imparting a small favor, you shall be written heir of eternal blessings. Now therefore do not trouble yourself to explain your mind to me, for Barnabas has with faithful speech informed me of all things about you and your dispositions, almost daily and without ceasing, recalling the memory of your good qualities. And to point out to you shortly, as to a friend already of one mind with us, what is your best course. If there is nothing to hinder you, come along with us, and hear the word of the truth, which we are going to speak in every place until we come even to the city of Rome. And now, if you wish anything, speak." Having detailed to him what purpose I had conceived from the beginning, and how I had been distracted with vain inquiries, and all those things which at first I intimated to you, my Lord James, so that I need not repeat the same things now, I willingly agreed to travel with him. For that, said I, is just what I was most eagerly desirous of. But first I should wish the scheme of truth to be expounded to me, that I may know whether the soul is mortal or immortal, and if immortal, whether it shall be brought into judgment for those things which it does here. Further, I desire to know what that righteousness is, which is pleasing to God. Then further, whether the world was created and why it was created, and whether it is to be dissolved, and whether it is to be renovated and made better, or whether after this there shall be no world at all. And not to mention everything, I should wish to be told what is the case with respect to these and such like things. To this, Peter answered, I shall briefly impart to you the knowledge of these things, O Clement. Therefore listen. The will and counsel of God has for many reasons been concealed from men. First, indeed, through bad instruction, wicked associations, evil habits, unprofitable conversation, and unrighteous presumptions. On account of all these, I say, first error, then contempt, then infidelity and malice, covetousness also, and vain boasting and other such like evils have filled the whole house of this world like some enormous smoke, and preventing those who dwell in it from seeing its founder aright, and from perceiving what things are pleasing to him. What then is fitting for those who are within, excepting with a cry brought forth from their inmost hearts to invoke his aid, who alone is not shut up in the smoke-filled house, that he would approach and open the door of the house, so that the smoke may be dissipated which is within, and the light of the sun which shines without may be admitted. He therefore, whose aid is needed for the house filled with the darkness of ignorance and the smoke of vices, is he, we say, who is called the true prophet, who alone can enlighten the souls of men, so that with their eyes they may plainly see the way of safety. For otherwise it is impossible to get knowledge of divine and eternal things, unless one learns of that true prophet. Because, as you yourself stated a little ago, the belief of things and the opinions of causes are estimated in proportion to the talents of their advocates. Hence also one and the same cause is now thought just, now unjust, and what now seemed true soon becomes false on the assertion of another. For this reason, the credit of religion and piety demanded the presence of the true prophet, that he himself might tell us respecting each particular, how the truth stands, and might teach us how we are to believe concerning each. And therefore, before all else, the credentials of the prophet himself must be examined with all care. And when you have once ascertained that he is a prophet, it behooves you thenceforth to believe him in everything, and not further to discuss the particulars which he teaches, but to hold the things which he speaks as certain and sacred, which things, although they seem to be received by faith, yet are believed on the ground of the probation previously instituted. For when once at the outset the truth of the prophet is established on examination, the rest is to be heard and held on the ground of the faith by which it is already established that he is a teacher of truth. And as it is certain that all things which pertain to divine knowledge ought to be held according to the rule of truth, so it is beyond doubt that from none but himself alone can it be known what is true,